This is Indianapolis This Week with Rafael Sanchez.
Thank you for joining us for Indianapolis This Week. Join our conversation right now. We're on Twitter, our handle at Indy This Week. So let's get started right now. Starting with the U.S. fight against ISIS. Word coming Friday that the U.S. is confident in an airstrike in Syria that killed Jihadi John, the prominent ISIS figure believed to have beheaded Indianapolis native Abdul Rahman Kasich. Joining us now is Senator Dan Coats. Welcome to the program. The president this morning saying that ISIS is not growing, but it's not decapitated. What does that mean?
Either the president is not aware of what's going on. This thing is metastasizing like a cancer, not only in the Middle East, it's in Afghanistan, it's in Northern Africa. The lure of ISIL and the growth of ISIL, and the people flowing in to support ISIL and the money flowing in. The president either trying to tamp down something that people get concerned about. It's something he ought to be more concerned about because it is growing. It is a threat. There is potentially some link with the downed aircraft. And that happened way south in Egypt. So, you know, we need to be concerned about this. And I don't think when the president dismisses it. Remember he said junior varsity? They're not the junior varsity. They're a real threat to world peace. You
have to admit that the administration's airstrikes campaign is working, in the sense that we're also hearing that Jihadi John, the man that allegedly decapitated one of Indiana's own, and Abdul Rahman Kasich was killed in an airstrike. Are those airstrikes working, and what is the impact of killing someone like a Jihadi John?
Well, he had become the symbol and recruiting effort for ISIL. And so I think symbolically this is very, very important, and I think we're 99% certain that we got him through some very sophisticated techniques, and it was good intelligence that allowed that to happen. But there's a limitation to what you can do from the air. Ultimately, to defeat ISIS, you're going to have to deal with them on the ground. Now, what that force should be, how it should be composed, what role the moderate Muslims or the anti-ISIL Muslims should play, which I think should be significant. These are all questions, but we're only successful on a percentage of these airstrikes, and ISIL has shown it can survive this and it continue to expand and metastasize throughout the Middle East.
There is a desire to protect national security, but as you know, the Indiana National Guard, for example, had its largest deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan since World War II. Yeah. There's not really much of a public support for more boots on the ground. Are you seeing that, and do we need, but that being said, do we need to send thousands of men and women back into the Middle East?
No, we don't necessarily need to do that. We can accomplish this, but we need to accomplish it with people who have these unique skills that can determine where is this Jihadi John, where is the heart and center of ISIL, how do we go after the top leaders. Those boots on the ground don't have to be American boots, but there has to be a combined support from the world's democratic nations along with Muslim support, and a lot of those boots have to be Muslim. Right now, the Peshmerga coming out of northern Iraq are successful. They're fighters. We're supporting them, trying to give them the intelligence, trying to give them the support, logistic support, and backed up by air support. But we've never been able to succeed in taking back ground unless we put boots on the ground. No one's talking about an invasion force. We're talking about sophisticated special operations that can help others achieve this result.
Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump says bomb them. Bomb everything in sight. The oil fields, the people, and everything. Is that the right policy?
Well, Donald loves to say things that, oh, just do this and it'll be fine. Build a wall and we won't have a problem down south. He doesn't back it up with substance. History has shown that air power alone cannot achieve this. We've been bombing them for 2 years, and yet they're still expanding and still metastasizing throughout not just the Middle East, but also into Afghanistan, also into Northern Africa. Take down, apparently, not documented yet, but I think it's going to be, a Russian aircraft with 200 and some people in it. So it's a terror threat that expands beyond where they now are, and bombing can achieve limited success, but not total success.
Senator Dan Coats, thank you so much for joining us. You're
Rafael,
always welcome on the program. Thank you, Senator. Thank you. Another developing story heading into a new week, the deadline in the state's amnesty program. The Department of Revenue also apologizing for mistakenly sending 150,000 Hoosiers letters suggesting they owed money when they do not. Despite that mistake, the state's top taxman says people are responding to the call for amnesty. Joining us now is the Commissioner for the Department of Revenue, Andrew Kosak. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for
Amnesty. It wraps up tomorrow at 11:59. How's it going so far?
It does. It's quickly coming to an end, but it's gone very well so far. I'm really proud of my team and the efforts that they've made. We've had over 45,000 taxpayers pay in full already. We're well on track to hit our funding goals, which was $84 million for the Indiana Regional Cities Initiative, and then $6 million beyond that would go to the Hoosier State Rail Line. We expect to exceed those numbers. The money is continuing to come in, and taxpayers can pay through payment plans and so forth through June 15th of 2016. So the money will continue to come in. The numbers change every day, but we're well on track to hit those targets.
So how will this money from the tax amnesty benefit people?
Well, it benefits them in several ways. First of all, the programs are very exciting programs. IndianaRegionalCities.com will provide a lot of information about that program. There's a lot of exciting things happening around the state as part of that initiative. As far as taxpayers themselves, one of the reasons we're most excited about this program is that it allows taxpayers to get compliant. It gets tax liabilities off the record going forward. It helps their credit rating because they don't have those issues on their credit reports and so forth that'll drag down their scores, affect their ability to get loans and so forth. So it benefits them in that way, and it benefits us in the fact that we'll have less of those delinquent accounts to administer going forward.
Those that choose not to accept this tax amnesty, who say, listen, nice try, but I'm just not going to pay, then what?
Well, it is a voluntary program, and so every taxpayer needs to do that cost-benefit analysis to see if it makes sense for them and their families. If they choose not to participate, there is a penalty that is associated with delinquent tax accounts that would double after the program ends. So the penalty is 10% of whatever the liability is. If it's a $100 liability, it would be $10. So after the program, it would become a $20 penalty.
So on this Sunday morning, if I am someone who owes you money, a tax, what can I do right now? I only have a day and a half left. How easy is it for me to call and say, or to engage you and say, I want to clear up my record?
Well, I'm glad you asked. It's certainly not too late. We have people on the phones today, Sunday, and all day Monday into the evening. We'll be open until 8 on Monday. So they can call 1-844-TAXES-IN. They can visit us online at taxamnesty.in.gov. They can go ahead and make a payment online. They can also, if they received a coupon, every eligible taxpayer should have received a coupon at the beginning of the program. They can mail that in as long as it's postmarked by Monday. They'll be able to fully participate.
And Commissioner, people should understand that you don't do this every year. This is something that you do every once in a while.
That's right. Yeah, the last one was 10 years ago. This is the only one that current law ever authorizes. So unless the General Assembly would act again to allow us to authorize us to do another one, this is it as far as we're concerned.
Commissioner Kosak, thank you so much. Best of luck again. Tax amnesty. Your deadline is Monday at 11:59. Thank you so much. And
thanks, Rafael. Thank you.
Coming up, the U.S. missile test in the Pacific Ocean and its ties to Indiana. We'll talk about that next. You're watching Indianapolis This Week on RTV6. Welcome back to Indianapolis This Week as we turn to that missile test, the one that had so many people speculating about a possible UFO last weekend. The launch of a ballistic missile from a submarine off the coast of California. That test with huge connections to Indiana. Let's talk more about that with Congresswoman Jackie Walorski with our Katie Hines.
Tell us, so you were able to witness a missile test this week, is that correct?
I was, and it was a great opportunity for me. One of the reasons that I was invited to attend was because all the electronic warfare equipment on that missile is produced in the state of Indiana, and it's produced at the Crane Naval Facility in southern Indiana, which I'm going to be visiting there very, very soon. And so it was just a great opportunity, to watch a test missile go up, and from the most powerful sub in our fleet. And it's one of the most powerful missiles our nation operates, and it sends a message to the rest of the world. There's a lot of increasing activity right now. We have Putin overactive, very, very aggressive. It has gone from Ukraine into Syria now. We've got a lot of rhetoric coming from North Korea. We have a very aggressive China building airstrips in the South China Seas. And so I think it was really good timing that that missile went up to tell the world that the United States still is the most global superpower. We are still in control of the superiority of the military in the world, and that we plan on staying that way. And I think it's a really extremely important message to send. So I was thrilled to be there to watch this missile go up. We were about 3 hours out of the Pacific off the coast of San Diego. That thing went up, left the atmosphere, came back down in Guam. It traveled 4,000 miles in 25 minutes, and it was deadly accurate.
Well, we know we're taking part in a 3-day defense tour this week, too. What have you been seeing, learning, and what's the purpose overall of this tour?
You know, the purpose overall is I sit on the Armed Services Committee at the federal level for my 3rd year now. I'm the only Hoosier that really has to represent all of the military assets in the state of Indiana. And I think it's just really important for Hoosiers to know, you know, from a veteran perspective, you know, we are 6.2 million people in the middle of the Midwest. And we have over 500,000 veterans in our state. We are the first, very often, to be called up and go, and we're the first that Hoosiers say yes and they go. And, you know, I just thought it was important, being on both committees, to be able to point out to Hoosiers what an active role in leadership Indiana now has at the table when it comes to the national security of our country. And a couple of weeks ago, when the president said that he was going to, and then did, veto the National Defense Authorization budget, which is the military budget, you know, when he vetoed that, you know, a lot of folks, I think, around Indiana, you know, we're all pro-military, we're all pro-freedom and safety and things like that, but I don't think folks really understood we are such a leader now in the defense industry and what we're producing in our state that when somebody talks about cutting military or eliminating a defense budget, those are tens of thousands of Hoosier jobs that are high-paying, high-tech, extremely strategic jobs.
I know you cast a vote for Paul Ryan for Speaker of the House. How do you feel he will serve as Speaker, and what's at stake in this role?
Well, you know, I know Paul personally. I served on the Budget Committee with him when I was a freshman. He was the chairman of the Budget Committee. And, you know, I think a lot of us have a lot of commonality with Paul. A lot of us have really, you know, we ran to be a part of tax reform. We ran to be a part of you know, getting our finances in order and leaving a better generation for the generation ahead. And Paul's done a good job in the short time that he's been Speaker. So I would say in the last week, you know, some of the things that really had to happen were things like that, and this doesn't make a whole lot of sense to a lot of people, but going back to regular order. You know, for example, we had a highway bill, and there was something like 300 amendments on the highway bill. Well, if that would have been a closed process like it has been, you may have had 20. Right? Well, now we have 300. And it means that Congress really does have to take its role seriously and be in there to cast those votes. So for maybe a 20-minute voting period, you might have 10 hours of voting, you know? But that's the job we ran for, and that's the kind of transparency and accountability we want. And, you know, and he's not afraid to take on the issues that we have to take on. There's a lot of big issues, you know, in Congress. There's a lot of heavy lifting. You know, our country is very divided. And when you look at the division in the culture in the country, you know, it definitely reflects back to the lawmakers. And we've been able to accomplish a lot in a week. And I think the American people are at the table. They are hearing, they have ears on, and they're seeing the tangible things that are coming out of the House and the plan that we have for the future. So I think, you know, we've pushed a reset button. I think we're moving forward as much better as a cohesive team. And you know, there's going to be tough days ahead, but, you know, this is a job that, you know, I ran for because I want to make a difference. I want to fight for my district. I want to fight for my state. So, you know, for me, I stay laser focused on what I was called to do.
You also served, Congresswoman, on the Veterans Committee with Veterans Day this week. What is the status of the services here in the country and in the state of Indiana?
I would tell you this. I've been on the committee for 3 years, and, you know, I'm thankful to every veteran that has served our nation and served from the state of Indiana as well. And, you know, my job is to fight for them. I've been involved in only 3 years in fighting for life and death for some of our Hoosier veterans, and it just shouldn't be that way. It should not take the role of a congressperson at the federal level to fight for benefits. These benefits should be absolutely out there. You know, these Hoosiers were the first to go. And the government said to them, we're going to provide for you when you come back incredible education benefits. We're going to take care of your health. We're going to take care of your family. They should not have to call a congresswoman and say, can you help me get through the bureaucracy of the VA? And I will tell you, in the last 3 years, we've taken a couple great positive steps forward with the reform bill last year, rolling out the choice program. But we still have issues in Indiana at the VA. And I would tell you, for the first couple of steps we've taken forward, we have a long way to go. And part of my job is to be the accountability at the federal level of these agencies, and the VA is no different. And we work this every day, 24/7.
Congresswoman, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. So much appreciate it. Thank you.
Katie, thank you. Getting ready for Organization Day and the new plan to pay for road construction in Indiana. Details on the Democrats' plan. And our political insiders, they're already talking. They're here, and you're watching Indianapolis This Week on RTV6. Welcome back to Indianapolis This Week as we turn our attention now to the State House. Organization Day coming up this Tuesday. Perhaps our first chance to see some of the priorities of the upcoming legislative session. Indiana's Democrats have floated a new plan to fix the state's roads and bridges. And that plan, unveiled Monday, calls for $2 billion to be spent over 4 years, dedicating all of the sales taxes collected on gasoline and special fuels to road maintenance.
We are losing revenue every year because we're not maintaining our roads and bridges. That's the fundamental key. We're limiting our economic growth because we're not reinvesting in something that's so fundamental.
Last month, Governor Pence proposed a road funding plan of his own. The 4-year, $1 billion plan centers around using money from the state's budget surplus and issuing bonds. PLATH says they will also push for adding civil rights protections for the LGBT community. Time for our insiders, Dan Parker, Abdul Hakim Shabazz, and of course, Mary Beth Schneider. What do we make of Organization Day Tuesday? Is that the start of it all? And will anything get done? So many questions and have you speechless on a Sunday.
I was being polite, letting Mary Beth go first.
My guess is, there's probably not going to be a lot more than ceremony on Organization Day and drawing lines in the sand. But it's a short session. They really don't have a whole lot of time to get moving on this stuff.
What you can expect is the LGBT issue will come up already. The Freedom Indiana people, the religious right are all talking about their respective rallies, so see a lot of that back and forth.
What about the road plan? What about the road plan?
You won't see much done on roads because Organization Day is basically ceremonial. What I thought was interesting that the Democrats unveiled a plan to dedicate all the sales tax on gasoline to roads and infrastructure, which is the total opposite of what John Gregg wanted to do when he ran for governor, which is eliminate the sales tax on gasoline altogether.
Is he right?
Well, he's never right.
Except for this time.
he was right on the LGBT issue. There'll be a lot of rallies on Organization Day on that issue. The lines in the sand have already been drawn on that. I think the governor is hurting himself the more he sits back and waits to get involved. The issue needs to get done and move on. On the roads, it just shows how big of an issue this is and how much people were impacted by the summer, that we now have two competing plans. I said when the governor came out with his plan that the biggest problem was with it didn't deal with the local roads and it wasn't long-term. This plan deals with locals, but it's also not long-term. So you can tell
not sustainable.
You can tell that there's an election coming up because there's competing plans. It's an important issue and it needs to be addressed. My hope is that we can have a debate where we get to a sustainable plan that's long-term.
Speaking of debates, the Democrats, the presidential Democrats running for president, debated on Saturday, and then earlier in the week we saw Donald Trump showing us his belt. What do you make of that?
If that doesn't, do in Donald Trump, then nothing will. But the biggest thing I make of it is, one, he loses his temper when he's #2 in polls. And the real question is whether or not people in Iowa are really going to vote for a man who just said they're stupid.
As somebody who lived in Iowa, Iowans take their presidential politics very seriously.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump wasn't helping himself. Ben Carson already had that appeal with the evangelical crowd of people. You can tell, I don't think Donald Trump may not be too long for this world because he seems to be engaged in self-destructive behavior, equating, Ben Carson's sort of pathology to child molesters, waving the belt around, calling Iowans like, dude.
Yeah, asking people to shiv him, yeah.
Yeah.
The whole thing was bizarre in the extreme.
I think the person to watch in the Republican primary field is Ted Cruz. He was the one person, you can tell he's an experienced debater. He was laying the foundation for the coming debate between whoever the establishment pick is. Right now it looks like Marco Rubio, and he will be the conservative right-wing candidate. He's the one who's laying the foundation for what comes, not this back and forth and what's happening with Donald Trump.
I think there's a lot of truth to that, but I still think Marco Rubio, because he can thread the needle, he can appeal right now to establishment.
Well, I think that's what Cruz was doing, though. He was laying down the issues on particularly immigration.
All is that the more these guys keep going on back and forth with all this back and forth silliness, the more it makes it more likely that your good friend Hillary Clinton will be president of the United States.
That's why I was smiling through this whole segment.
And of course, this week we remember a good friend of journalism, that's Amos Brown, laid to rest yesterday. We have a minute left. Your thoughts on Amos Brown?
We agreed on nothing, but he was a fighter for his community, and I will give credit where credit due, and it is a voice that it will be very hard to duplicate in Indianapolis.
Dan?
He was the voice of the voiceless, and knew the issues of his community and fought for it, and he'll be truly missed in Indianapolis.
Yeah, great guy. Really did fill a niche that I don't know who else will step up to fill that void.
But of course, someone that will be missed, and we'll have a special remembrance to him in just a few moments. Thank you so much. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
I mean, you started off speechless, and I have you laughing.
Doesn't happen much.
I know.
I was just trying to be polite for Mary Beth.
The insiders, everybody. You can keep up to date every day of the week by following our Indianapolis This Week Twitter account at Indy This Week. We'll be right back.